Nova? Doesn't that mean doesn't go in Spanish?
Dun dun dun
Oh, don't let its mild looks fool you. This is not a Wellcraft fishing boat. This is not the Wellcraft V20. Try Bonafide Offshore Race Hull. Say what? For the average Joe boater today, he probably looks at this thing as some sort of washed up family fishing boat with a neat retro look. Or in this particular case, a rotted out reminder of yesteryear. But try your best to look past the rot. I know, it's hard. Oh, but the average Joe would be very wrong in these assumptions. Just crazy wrong. True, its looks aren't exactly in the aggressive department by today's standards, with its tall windshield and duck-billed bow, but this boat has some serious pedigree. History time! Alan Brown, also known as Brownie, started Nova Marine in 1970. Oh, are those the guys who made Johnny 5? I love that movie! Yeah, but his resume by then was already impressive coming from Donzi Marine, all while rubbing elbows, playing pranks, and racing with the famous founder of Cigarette Donzi and Formula. Yes, that Don Arnow. Being developed from the Donzi 7-meter and smushing a deck design from a Carry 28 on top, a boat known as the Supernova in the late 60s was born. Offshore racing back then was truly offshore, where guys with some loose screws would race over hundreds of miles in open ocean in 20-something foot boats for next to no money and no glory. By 1970, Brownie left Donzi Marine and decided to start his own boat company. Originally called the Nova 24, Wellcraft purchased the molds from Brownie thanks to Nova Marine sadly going out of business in the early 70s. Thank you, fuel embargo. Not only did you ruin muscle cars, you killed off the Nova, you dick. Wellcraft decided this might be a design for dipping their toe into the performance boat market. It took a little bit of a leap of faith that, while obsolete for racing, maybe a muscle boat would be a trend on the rise. And they were right. And yes, the boat, while designed as an ocean racer, was equipped more as a family runabout. But it worked. It was rugged, versatile, tough, and for its time, unique. And no slouch in the speed department either. Wellcraft officially relaunched their version of the 24 in 1973 as the Nova 250. No way, another boat grew a size overnight? Although, the original was 24 foot 8 inches, so... Hashtag rounding! This particular version ran till 81, when it was replaced with the Nova 23. Wellcraft would run the Nova line all the way to 1995, and over the years would expand the line with models from the 202 to a Nova 3 that actually measured 27.5 feet long. While the Nova line changed over the years to stay current, the line ultimately kept a lot of the DNA linked to the original, as they all shared this common, let's call it hossy look. This boat was the equivalent of a former linebacker holding a kitty cat. It looks docile, kind, and pudgy. Oh, he's just a big softy that's misunderstood. But it also means business. It's very athletic, and it takes a lot to push it around. It's not fat, it's straight up big boned. It marches out of the harbor on a rough day, scoffing at the notion of a small craft advisory. That shit's for pussies. Now, while I'm talking up this boat, keep in mind this boat wasn't exactly the only one of its kind, as Formula had their own competitor, the 233. Also a former racer with pedigree from Don himself. Yes, Don Arnow. Aronow. Google it! And eventually, the 255, Liberator.
So, what's so exciting about this rotted out piece of shit?
Well, first of all, thanks to Brownie not bothering to change the hull design for the consumer model, this thing is designed to do one thing very well. Crush. And I'll be crushing it! With a dead rise measuring 24.7 degrees, that deep V mixed with big power meant you could easily cruise at high speeds in big water. Crying out loud, it's an ocean racer. And while that duck-billed looking bow wasn't necessarily a sleek design element, its design would provide great forward buoyancy in following seas. Slap that on a center console and suddenly everybody is, look at the Carolina flare. This thing just screams Great Lakes boating. Heck, if they made this a bow rider, it'd probably be the dual console of choice today. Ultimately, this is the boat that would lead Wellcraft to push even deeper into performance models. The famous Scarab lineup, no, not the jet boats, were born thanks in part to the success of the Nova. Okay, yes, and the climb of Don's cigarette brand. And while she's not a speed demon by today's standards, we're talking high 40s, low 50s, it's hard not to be impressed with her capabilities to this day. She can still outcrush many boats her size. Strictly looking at its features, it's about what you'd expect of a 70s boat, or for that matter a 70s Wellcraft. Questionable construction methods, outdated design, poor access to the bow. But here's something wild. Standing up or sitting down, you have full view of your gauges and can easily reach controls. That's huge, people. I've owned early 90s boats that didn't even have that kind of cross functionality. And the cockpit in this thing, it's pretty damn roomy, especially for a 25 foot in the performance category. These flip up rear seats to get access to the engine are light, easy to get to, or you can pull the whole thing out. It's kind of neat. Let's be real, this is a 100% project boat, especially this poor neglected heat. A worthy project, but sadly most of these are understandably past their prime and will require a heavy non-returnable investment. But that's the price you pay for being in on the secret of one of the best running 25s ever made. And sadly, while full of pedigree and capability, this boat will never be looked on like a classic Donziger cigarette. It's how I imagine owners of a 57 Ford must feel when someone comes up to talk to them about their cousin's 57 Chevy Bel Air. Yeah, 57 Chevy, yeah, I've seen them. You know the Ford outsold the Chevy that year, right? This boat has a lot of nostalgia, not because it's old, but it's from back when boats were developed by racing them in tough, grueling conditions. Jim Bertram simply ran a race team, not in the hopes of building go-fast boats, but to find a way to make a better fishing boat. You don't see that kind of behavior anymore. Hell, I think Reggie Fountain was the last to do it. How many factory-sponsored race teams do you even see in Superboat or OPA racing? End of the day, the Great Lake kicks up some serious snot. While the Nova doesn't have a place in the market today, it does play granddaddy to what would ultimately become one of today's hottest boat trends.
Bitch, you crazy.
I know, but the deep V, the flared bow, designed to run in the snot, these kind of hulls all tip their hats to these late 60s designs. And it broke, it's just improved. This boat, and formulas, would ultimately usher in the modern go-fast boat. Whether it's a classic isn't a question, it is. And should you see one, do me a favor, give that owner a wave, a nod. Hell, a hug. He could probably use it, because Lord knows he probably put his sweat, blood, and tears into getting that thing up and running. Let him know. You get it. This is a BoatBrain saying, keep those throttles pushed to the dash. Till next time.